I got to give you the list of the best and most underrated players headed into the college football 2025 season because everybody's giving you the list, the top players. Well, these are the guys who are going to lead those teams and are going to be on the All American list, the All Conference list that you have not heard of right now. And if you missed the offensive players list, go back over on the Unafraid Show on YouTube and go check out that list as well because it's phenomenal. Make sure that you guys like, subscribe, get notifications, and tell a friend about the show. Let's get to it. We're going to start with the defensive lineman because we got Clev Lubin over at Louisville. 6'3", 250-pound edge rusher. The kid has an interesting journey. From being New York's Gatorade Player of the Year in high school to leaving Army after one season, which dozens of players do every single year, to dominating at Iowa Western to the point of being named a first-team NJCAA All-American. This dude registered a quarterback pressure on one of every 5 pass rushes at Coastal Carolina. Now, Lubin was a hot name on the transfer market, and Louisville eventually won out. Now, he's been a menace at every single level, and I fully expect him to up his game and be a force in the ACC in 2025. Make sure that you watch Marquise Humphrey Grace over at Kentucky. Now, Kentucky landed the 2024 Missouri Valley Football Conference Defensive Player of the Year after Humphrey Grace led the Missouri Valley in tackles for loss at 17, and he had 9.5 sacks to add to that. He also took South Dakota to his first ever FCS semifinal. Now, this is an impact player, and he has the SEC size, 6'4", 265. Now, the national media seems to believe that half of the country's best quarterbacks will play in the SEC this year. So Marquise is going to have a ton of opportunities to pop out on film while they're watching these quarterbacks. Let's look at Arias Nash over at Virginia Tech. I'll be honest, I listen to football fans talk about undersized guys and how nobody gives them a shot. And while I understand that sentiment in believing that every single productive undersized guy can translate, no matter how much you level them up, that's not the case. And I totally get that you can't measure somebody's heart, but measurables do matter on some level. And I get it because I was an undersized guy in the NFL playing tight end. But there's a reason why the NFL is full of giants and why the smaller guys have to be so much better than the rest of them. Now, Aaron Donald, complete exception. He's the exception, not the rule. But Arias Nash might be another one of those exceptions. Now, the kid spent 2 years developing at Mercer before they let him loose. That's where he quickly became one of the best FCS defensive linemen in the country. And that's honestly what's fascinating about Virginia Tech targeting Nash as a transfer, is that you can look at their roster and see that they also believe bigger is better. Because the other FCS transfer they took on the D-line, the dude is 6'5", 315. And he only registered 11 tackles last year. But Nash, on the other hand, dude was a menace. And if he can duplicate that in the ACC, and Virginia Tech's offensive plays as good as they look, then the Hokies might finally get back to competing the way that they did 20 to 25 years ago. I've got the perfect player for you to root for in college football in 2025. That's Trey White from San Diego State. Because if you're one of those people that thinks that college football is ruined because you never see a player spend 4 years at a school that's near their hometown and then go from the scout team to all conference without them getting bought up by a bigger program, well, Trey White from San Diego State is the perfect guy for you. White is from San Diego, was San Diego State Scout Team Player of the Year in 2022, got voted a team captain in 2024, despite only having one career start to his name, and then went out there and tore it up in the Mountain West with 18.5 tackles for loss, 12.5 sacks, and guess what? He's still an Aztec, believe it or not. How did that happen? Now, this is a name that every college football fan should know, especially the old heads that complain that things aren't like the way that they used to be. Well, here's one for you. Make sure that you watch Malik Charles over at Oklahoma State. I'm honestly not sure that you can get more under the radar than Malik Charles. And this is because the 6'5", 255 speedy defensive lineman didn't really even play football in high school. Dude was a hooper. And that didn't work out. He decided to follow his father's path on the defensive line. Now, his dad was a 9-year NFL vet, and with Malik's talent, he might be able to do the exact same thing. The kid went from not playing at Western New Mexico to getting a few reps at Northern Arizona to then leading West Georgia last year with 10 tackles for loss and 7 sacks. If he can translate to the Big 12, he might give Mike Gundy exactly what he needs to disrupt opposing quarterbacks in 2025. All eyes are going to be on Malik Charles at Oklahoma State. Okay, timeout, timeout. Make sure that you like, subscribe, get notifications, and tell a friend about the Unafraid Show. Now we got to talk about the linebackers on this underrated list. So we have Austin Romaine over at Kansas State. Now, Big 12 fans know Austin Romaine because he has 2 consecutive seasons collecting all conference awards. First season, he was the Defensive Freshman of the Year in 2023, and then he was all Big 12 second team as a sophomore in 2024. But it's about time that the 6'2", 240 tackling machine becomes a household name amongst all of college football. Now, Romaine had the most tackles of any Kansas State player in 7 years last season, and he did it as a sophomore. And he actually should be a favorite to compete for the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year in 2025. Now, let's talk about Cayman Spaulding over at Georgia Tech. Spaulding had 66 tackles, including 11 for loss, and earned all Big South Ohio Valley Conference first team honors this past season at Tennessee Tech. Now, he's one of those athletes that dominated at the high school level, but had a body that was more like a tweener. And I'm sure that some coaches there are kicking themselves for not thinking that they could develop him into an efficient linebacker. Well, guess what? Now Spaulding returns to his home state of Georgia with a chip on his shoulder and the credentials to make me think that he'll translate very well for Brent Key over there at Georgia Tech and be a force in the ACC. Put the lenses on so you can see Travion Barnes over at Baylor. Now, Travion Barnes left Georgia Military Academy for FIU before the 2024 season and then got down to business immediately. Now, Barnes ranked 3rd nationally in tackles per game and 5th in total tackles during his lone season at FIU with 129 tackles in 11 games. Bro, that's insane. And then Baylor, they literally need this kid because their head coach, Dave Aranda, he might have saved his job last year by fixing the offense, but he's supposed to be a defensive guy, and their defense was not good last year. So a dependable, productive guy like Barnes could be the difference between winning and losing in Waco this year. Hear me out, Kyle Lewis at Pitt. Now, you might see this name and laugh like, George, stop it. How could somebody with this resume be slept on? Sporting News All-America first team. AP All-America second team, CBS All-America second team, Field Steel All-America, The Athletic, Football Network, the College Football Network ACC Linebacker of the Year. But I'm telling you right now, casuals do not know who Kyle Lewis is because the moment a 7-0 Pitt squad started to get some shine, they didn't win another game for the rest of the year. But the thing I like most about Kyle Lewis is that he doesn't have to carry this Pitt defense at all. The whole linebacking group is nasty. And when the guys next to you can also ball, you aren't out there trying to do too much. Oh, we're going down to the dirty South. We got Suntarine Perkins over there at Ole Miss. Now, if there's one name that probably shouldn't be on this list, maybe it's Perkins, because he was a top 100 recruit coming out of high school, and he's lived up to the hype. The reason why I call him an under-the-radar guy is because Ole Miss will probably have 5 to 6 guys drafted this year, and Perkins is too young to be on that list, so he'll be back in 2025. We'll find out if one of the reasons he was co-leader in sacks and tackles for loss is whether it was because of Princely and Walter Nolan that they were taking up so much attention, because this year, Perkins is going to get the attention, and if he duplicates last year's production, he will be a first-round pick. Now, let's go over to the DBs, the defensive backs. We got Matthew Traynor out of Wisconsin. Now, I'm not sure how an old-school downhill violent safety that starred in Georgia high school football didn't have more options out of high school, but he proved very quickly that he can handle his own in the Coastal Athletic Association. That's where he was named Defensive Rookie of the Year in the conference. 69 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss from the safety position and 2 picks, including one against Virginia. Now, it's a big step up from being a Richmond Spider, from being a Wisconsin Badger, but he has the exact type of mindset and skill set that could help him thrive playing for Luke Fickell over there in Madison. And he's the exact type of hitter that could make him a fan favorite amongst them that jump around crowd in Camp Randall Stadium. I am excited about Blake Cotton out of Utah. Now, one of my son's teammates last season at UC Davis is taking his 6'3", 190-pound frame to be coached by one of the greatest defensive minds of all time. Now, Cotton helped UC Davis to one of its best seasons in a long time last year. And this is the exact kind of range that Utah loves in its cornerbacks. Now, from the sound of the reporting out of Salt Lake City and what I got a chance to see with my own 2 eyes, he's even potentially having a chance to start on day 1 opposite Scooby Davis. This is a kid you probably haven't heard about, is Caleb Francl from Wazzu, aka Washington State. Now, Jimmy Rogers, he took a lot of his former players with him when he left South Dakota State to go to Washington State. But Caleb Francl might be the most important one for establishing the type of jackrabbit culture in Cougar land. Now, he's a hybrid DB slash linebacker who spent 5 years at South Dakota State after initially walking on, and has 1 year of eligibility to use in Pullman this year. Last year, Francl had 78 tackles and showed that he can cover as well as play really tough in run support. Now, on top of having 11 tackles for loss, he broke up 7 passes, and I don't even think he gave up a receiving touchdown last year. Now, the only thing I worry about is that he might be coming back from a pretty serious injury at the end of last season. And so to play fast and loose the way Francl does, you need to be good and feel good about where your body is. Auburn might have a guy in Raion Strader. Now, College Sports Network is calling Strader the 9th best returning player in college football in 2025. Not just on defense, 9th best overall. So if you haven't heard of this guy, let me catch you up. Strader transferred to Auburn from Miami of Ohio last year after recording 53 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 19 pass breakups. Now, 19, that is a big number. Now, you'd figure opposing defenses would eventually stop trying to throw on a 6-foot corner with an insane 6'8" wingspan. Well, we'll see if SEC passers are brave enough to challenge him, because this dude has the athletic potential to be a one-and-done guy in the SEC. I've already got September 20th circled on what we're going to see against Oklahoma and John Mateer, because that's going to be a matchup. Let's see what Deion Sanders has up his sleeve for Tawfiq Byard over at Colorado. Nobody needs more help in the Big 12 at the safety position than Colorado, because they lost Shiloh Sanders and Cameron Solomon Craig to the NFL draft. Now, Byard is the perfect pickup for Deion Sanders. You might recognize the last name because, yes, this is Kevin Byard's little brother. And if you play on this Colorado defense, you need to be able to come up and make a tackle. And last year, Byard had 34 unassisted tackles in 10 starts at the University of South Florida. And the Buffs start the season against the team that is known for humbling people with their physicality, that is Georgia Tech. So we're going to know right away what Byard brings to Robert Livingston's defense. Now, this kid is confident, competitive, and perfectly embodies the attitude Colorado is trying to bring in 2025. And that is the list of underrated players in the 2025 college football season. Make sure that you like, subscribe, get notifications, and tell a friend about the Unafraid Show. And of course, come back and get more.